see behind me. Two 22nd District officers in an RPC arrived on location mid-block, and mid-block they came upon a field where there was a vehicle parked in it with several individuals milling about the vehicle. It appears as though as soon as they saw the officers pull up, this group, at least 2 to 3 individuals, ran off. The driver of the police car exited the vehicle and started to approach the scene to see what was going on, because again, at this time we weren't entirely sure what was happening out there. And another individual emerged. We weren't sure where he was. He was behind the vehicle, if he was inside the vehicle, we don't know. And he runs. So this second, this individual ran off separately from the first group of males. That officer then initiated a foot pursuit with this male, and the second officer that was inside of the police car joined in the foot pursuit, but he was several yards behind. Not entirely sure of the path of the foot pursuit at this time, but the foot pursuit itself continued down the 2200 block of Camac Street through a field, an abandoned lot that is out there. They ran through that field, and then the male ran through into the back of a property. The property itself is located on the 1200 block of Dauphin Street, but again, the foot pursuit was through 2200 Camac. There's an alleyway back there, a breezeway between these two properties. At that point, the male that was being chased produced a handgun and aimed it at our officer. Our officer fired at least one time. At that point, Officer 2, who still was not caught up at this point, heard the gunshots and began running towards them. When Officer 2 arrived on this location, he saw his partner, Officer 1, engaged in a physical altercation with this male who still had the handgun in his hand. At some point during that physical altercation, the male fired at least one shot from his gun. When that shot was fired, Officer 2 then discharged several rounds towards that male, and that stopped the struggle. Officer 2 heard sirens from responding officers. This came out as an assist officer. He hears the sirens, flags down a police car. They transport this male to Temple Hospital, where unfortunately he was pronounced dead at approximately 3:06 p.m. The male was struck several times throughout his body. As you can see, this is a very active crime scene right now. We have our officer-involved shooting investigations unit out here. They're going to conduct a full investigation. As always, officers that are involved in a discharge, they are placed on administrative duty pending the outcome of an internal affairs investigation. Again, it's very early, so I'm going to be limited in the information I can provide. Another thing that I would like to mention is that both of our officers, 22nd District officers, were wearing body cameras, and the body cameras were activated. So I'll take any questions that you have.
Any injuries to the officers?
No, the officers are uninjured.
Just rehash, who fires first?
Our officer, from what we know at this time, our officer fires first. Officer 1 fires first. He fires in response to a handgun being pointed at him. Again, that's the preliminary information that we have at this time. We do not know which of the officers struck this male. We don't know if it was one of the officers, the second officer, or both of them. But like I said, after that initial volley of gunshots was fired by Officer number 1, Officer 2 heard it, was able to locate where they were at, and when he got there, he saw his partner in this physical altercation with the male who still had a handgun in his hand. That male then fired at least one shot, and that is when Officer 2 discharged.
What was the original call? You said a vehicle? Like, what was the original
It originally came out as Investigate Auto.
What does that mean?
So we have to see the exact amount of information that was given by the 911 callers, but preliminarily, from what we know, is Investigate a stolen auto on the block. So the auto on the block, and obviously this is what we're seeing from the initial investigation. The car is in stolen status, and it appears as though there was a group of individuals that were out there with a large quantity of tools, and they were stripping the vehicle. Seats were taken out, airbags were being removed, all kinds of parts were being removed from the vehicle.
It was coming back as a stolen vehicle.
Yes, vehicles come back as stolen. Now remember, initially this just came out as a radio call. The officers did not have time to run this vehicle or anything else, which is why when Officer 1 was initially going up to the car, he wasn't entirely sure as to what was going on. These could have just been individuals working on their car out there. They weren't sure. But as he got closer and that other male emerged and ran, that's when the foot pursuit was initiated. So make it clear, at that point, initially from what we know, Officer 1 did not know this individual to be armed at this time. The foot pursuit was initiated for investigation of this vehicle.
How many rounds were fired by each officer?
There's multiple rounds were fired by each officer. We don't have the exact number at this time, but once we get our initial OISI report, we will put that out.
Sergeant, I apologize if this has already been answered, but the first shot that was fired by Philip did that strike?
No, we're not entirely sure at this time if the male was struck, but when those first shots were fired, that's when Officer 2 heard it and was able to get to the scene. And when he got there, his partner was already in a physical altercation with this male. And during that physical altercation, the male fired at least one shot from his gun, and that's when Officer 2 discharged. And that stopped the struggle at that point. But we don't know if he had already been struck by Officer 1's initial volley of gunfire at that point.
Just to be clear, when they arrived, they saw that this vehicle, they were removing the seats and
Well, when they first pulled up, they just saw a car in an alleyway with a bunch of. I mean, this all happened very fast. They pull up, they see this car parked in the lot. There's a group of males around it. This initial group runs off. The officer exits his car to see, entirely just trying to figure out what the heck he's seeing happening out there. And at that point, another male emerges, not entirely sure from where, and he runs, and the cop gives foot pursuit after him. It wasn't until afterwards, we could start to piece together exactly what was happening at the car. It was just the initial investigation of this auto.
the other guy.
I'm sorry?
Timetable for the body cam. When could we maybe get it?
Well, as far as releasing body cam footage, I mean, this will be evidence in a potential criminal investigation, so that would be up to the district attorney's office, but it would be used in court, so it probably would not be released anytime soon.
Any witnesses, to your knowledge, who are participating?
I mean, there's individuals that were outside on the block. We're not entirely sure who actually saw anything, who didn't, but, we live in a digital age now. There's a lot of cameras around. There's going to be a lot of witnesses, and, our detectives are going to have a lot of work ahead of them.
What about the other guys initially involved with that car scene when the officers pulled up?
Yeah, those males, we don't even really have a good description on them right now, and they got away from the scene.
How many, or?
2 to 3. Yeah, there was a group of individuals milling about. We think around 2 to 3, but we don't really have a good description on them.
How old is the person?
The decedent is a 33-year-old black male.
From this neighborhood?
The information that we have is not from this in Philadelphia, but not from this immediate area. But that's just information that we have on file. We're not entirely sure if he still lives at that address.
And the gunshot that he fired did not hit anyone?
Did not hit our officers. We're not entirely sure where it went, but as far as we know, it did not strike anyone.
One shot.
One shot.
At least one shot fired from the suspect. Not entirely sure how many. We have a number of shell casings back there, and there's going to be a lot of work to do to figure out what's
Recovered
what.
an arm? Did you guys recover the
I'm sorry.
the
Yeah, weapon. Yes, the weapon was recovered from that male.
How large is the scene?
It's over several blocks. So yeah, we have a scene on the 2300 block of Fawn Street, which is where the vehicle was at and where the foot pursuit began. Again, I'm not entirely sure at this time where the foot pursuit traveled through, but at least as of now, as you can see, it's 2300 block of Fawn Street, halfway down the 2200 block of Comac Street, and we have it stretched out halfway down Dolphin Street, 1200 Dolphin. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate your time.
you.
Thank you.